everybody? Welcome to another episode of the ABNF Podcast. I'm here with my buddy Nick. Nick, what's going on, man? How we doing? How we feeling with the second round of the playoffs starting?
I'm doing good on my end personally, man. I hope you're doing well. The second round's been very, very interesting so far. And it's particularly one series, obviously, the Minnesota-Denver one. I'm shocked. I
I
think
think
just like everybody else is shocked.
I think
But
the world is shocked.
yeah,
I feel like there was a lot of people that felt like Denver could win the series, and there were a lot of people on Minnesota's corner, though, to be fair.
no, that's true. Yeah, there's a couple of people that were really, really high on Minnesota. I personally wasn't one of those people. I thought maybe that this was just like a regular season thing, just like you see from some teams every year. Like they'll have like a great regular season, but they ain't built for the postseason. I just thought Minnesota was one of those teams, but clearly I was wrong on my end. They haven't lost a single playoff game yet.
No, they are 6-0 right now, Nick. Could we be possibly seeing a 16-0 playoff run from this Minnesota team the way they've been playing on defense?
I'll tell you what, they have a chance in every single game with the way they are scrappy on the defensive side of the floor. Obviously, if Anthony Edwards keeps balling out like this, and these role players are stepping up too right now. So anything is possible. They're eventually going to lose a game, though. I mean, there's been so many great teams that have had great runs in the playoffs, but they've lost some games. I mean, we saw the Lakers that one year went 15-1. They lost game one of the finals to AI. He dropped 48 game one of that in that final series. Obviously, you had the Golden State Warriors lost one game to the Cavaliers. They were almost undefeated too, right? They were 15-1 in the playoffs as well,
Yeah, the
or
year
something like
you're
that.
talking about you're
Yeah,
talking about 2017, correct?
yeah,
Yeah, they were the only game they had lost before they got to the finals was the first game of the Spurs series in the
oh,
Western
that's
Conference
right.
Finals when the Spurs won 67-15.
Yeah,
So that was an insane year for the West too to have two teams with that great of records because
hmm
67-15 we don't see that anymore. I haven't
no,
really seen when was the last time we saw a 60-win team in the NBA? Because right now I feel like you win 55 games, that's good enough to be first.
yeah. I mean, obviously, Boston went. Was it six? What they went 64 games in the regular season this year?
I think Boston
They
won.
were in the 60s,
They were 64-18. I feel like
64 and 18.
I don't think any team last year though got to 60 wins. I could be wrong, but I
hmm
feel like no team got to 60. I just don't feel like it's as common anymore to see it because the Knicks were 50 and
Yeah,
32 and they were the
yeah.
second seed. So I feel like somewhere between 50 to 55 wins now gets you one of the top seeds in either
hmm
conference. But it
Yeah,
also just means that the conferences are more competitive than they were
yeah,
before. And there's not one team that just truly dominates over everybody else. Obviously, the Celtics did in the regular season this year, going
yeah.
64-18. But
hmm
I mean, if you look at the West, we talked about it all year. The
No one's
West,
winning 60 games in the West in the regular season.
no, no. I mean,
Yeah,
you had three teams basically vying for first place. I mean, the Thunder had 57 wins and were the first seed, and then the Warriors had 46 wins and were the 10th seed. I mean, that's just how close it was. And it was an 11 game like spread. So
yeah.
yeah, but enough talk about the regular season, Nick. Kind of need to recap a couple more series from the first round. If you guys haven't been watching, we did drop our episode talking about the first round, giving our predictions and stuff. And if you haven't checked that out, please go ahead and see the link in our YouTube video below.
Yes, sir.
And please make sure to share, comment, like, and subscribe to the podcast if you have not already. We have it both on Spotify and YouTube, and we always appreciate everybody's support on this. So, Nick, real quick, so we can talk more about the second round.
hmm
How did you feel about the end of those three series? You called it, though. You said that, I'm sorry, four series that we need to recap. You called it. You said the one series that was going to go 7 games was that Cavs Magic series.
Yep.
And I got to give you props for that because
Thank you, sir.
I did see that one going 7, but I also did say that the Knicks, Sixers, and Pacers Bucks were also going to go 7. So how do you feel?
I feel good. I mean, like now, obviously, that my prediction for writing stuff. Next time, I got to start listening to myself and start maybe gambling a little bit. If I'm gonna go 3 for 3, got to start maybe cooking up some 2, 3, maybe 4 leg parlays if I'm gonna be this lucky. But no, I wasn't really surprised. I mean, the Knicks they were just flat out better than Philly in the series. You know what I mean? Cleveland, they just can't play on the road. You just saw it in game one yesterday. They got absolutely mauled by Boston, and Tatum only had 18. So if you're losing by 20 plus points, and it wasn't one of those Tatum games, I don't think the Cavaliers have a single chance in that series. So that's why I thought Orlando would win their home game, just because of how bad Cleveland is, and you're literally the most inconsistent top four seeded team I might have ever seen
Yeah,
personally.
I
Just like you
agree.
said on last episode, at times in the regular season, you're like, damn, this team could really make a conference finals run or something like that. Like they could beat anybody. And then
Mm.
there's games you're just like, you're just shaking your head. You just don't understand. You just don't get it at all. I feel like they should still blow it up after this year, even winning the playoff round. I feel like they were lucky that they were playing against an inexperienced young Orlando team, because I feel like if they were playing anybody else in the first round, I think they low key would have went home in the first round.
Yeah, I feel like right now against Boston, they're gonna get either gentlemen swept. I think, and this is something that you said earlier, or
Mm-hmm.
they might get swept. I just don't see this team, and if they're gonna be missing Jared Allen um
Oh yeah.
from injury,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see them winning more than one game in this series. I think one of the biggest issues is that Darius Garland, for some reason, when the playoffs start, he's just not the same guy that we see in the regular season. The only guy,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is crazy, Nick. I didn't watch game six. I'm going to be truthful about this. I didn't watch game six, but I'm going to also
Mm-hmm.
say that the NBA was putting every game on NBA TV. So they really didn't want you to
Yeah.
watch the series. When you are Donovan Mitchell and you score 50 points, you score every point in the fourth quarter of game six, and you still end up losing by 103-96.
Yeah.
Doesn't that tell you something about your team right then and there, especially against a team like Orlando, who I don't think offensively is this juggernaut team, but I feel like you at least should have gotten a couple shots from guys down the stretch. A Max Strus three. Darius Garland is supposed to be the second best player on this team. Evan Mobley's not really performing in the way he should be.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like it just feels like, you have a guy like Karis LeVert who I feel like
Yeah. Coming off the bench.
last year was in the six man conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of, I don't know. This team is in a weird position because they
Yeah.
have they have a good team,
Mm-hmm.
but it feels like when the playoffs start, they remind me of like that Denver Nuggets of the early 2010s with Iguodala that one year where they have a lot of good pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say Donovan Mitchell is a star level player. And then everybody else around him is like an all-star level player that and like role players, and they're always good during the regular season, but when the playoffs start, they just kind of don't show up.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's your take on, I guess you said blow it up. So, are you saying Donovan Mitchell gets traded, like probably in a sign and trade, because he'll probably opt out of his contract after this year? I have to
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. Um, I think you just got to see how he feels about this situation. I feel like you could trade other pieces and make the team better around Donovan Mitchell instead of just getting rid of Donovan Mitchell. I think Darius Garland to me is one of the most overrated players in the NBA. He was an
Ooh,
all-star a
hot
couple
take.
years
Hot take.
ago.
Okay.
Yeah, he was an all-star a couple years ago, and ever since Donovan Mitchell got put on this team, man, his numbers just completely have dropped. Obviously, rightfully so. I mean, Donovan Mitchell has a ball on his hands, and he's a high volume shooter, high volume scorer, of course. But I just think, like, even in this playoffs, I mean, he's only averaging like 14 points a game in his postseason. Like, if you're an all-star level player, you got to figure it out. You just have to figure it out. I mean, Kyrie Irving's the second option. He ain't averaging just 14 points. There's so many great second scorers on teams. They're not averaging 14 points per game in the postseason. I don't know. To me, I just think Darius Garland and just in the playoffs, man, I feel like he just doesn't perform the same as in the regular season. And his regular season numbers were worse this year than they were last year. If you're a young player, those numbers should keep going up. They're starting to drop, and it's very concerning to me. Honestly, if I'm Cleveland, I try to keep Mitchell trade Garland, get what you get from him. I feel like there'll be a lot of interest. He's still young. I think he's very, very talented. I just think he's overrated in my opinion, but that doesn't mean he's not a good player. I just feel like people have overhyped him for him
I
to they think that he's something that in my opinion, no. I just don't think he is.
I think why people overhype him is the year they made the play-in and Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. They looked amazing during the regular
Mm-hmm.
season. At one point, they were one of the top seeds, and then they fell off because of injuries. Kind of the same way because with the Bulls too. Like
Mm-hmm.
when we look at that 2021, 2022 season, at one point, Miami, Chicago, and Cleveland were at the top of the East. Cleveland looked like a legit team, really good
Yeah.
defensively. You had a lot of like fun young pieces. And I think that's why Darius Garland got put into that conversation. Then they were able to trade for Donovan Mitchell, which I still think in retrospect, what they gave up for Donovan Mitchell compared to what Minnesota had to give up for Rudy Gobert is pennies on the dollar. Like I think it's
Yeah.
insane still that Rudy Gobert was traded for what he was. And the fact that Minnesota is so good this year,
Yeah.
considering everything they gave up,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact they were able to retool this team, and they're in the argument right now of being the best team left in the
Oh
NBA
yeah.
playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
To me, it says a lot about this team. And I would say for Darius Garland, I think because he doesn't have the ball in his hand, he's not a guy that plays off the ball because he
Mm-hmm.
is a point guard.
Yeah.
And I think because Donovan Mitchell is a point he's more of a two guard, but he's a scorer. So
Mm-hmm.
what he want, he needs the ball in his hands to create.
Yeah.
And Darius Garland needs the ball in his hands to also create for others. And
Mm-hmm.
when you have two ball dominant players, obviously one of them is going to have to take a back seat. And in this situation, it's going to be Darius Garland. And I think that's where his numbers are going down. But at the same time, he's also undersized. We've all known this. He's 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, too, is that we have to also look at that.
Yeah. And coming into this year too, I raved about the Cavaliers'
Mhm.
off season. I said Niang and Shoes, those were great,
They were good
low key,
pickups.
like good pickups, but like they're barely playing Niang. I mean, he's a good shooter, but they're
Mhm.
barely playing the guy. Um, just like you said, the first round of Cavaliers, they just can't hit the three ball well as a team. And in the playoffs, yeah, you might have won a round against Orlando, but like you can only go so far when you're not, especially in today's NBA, when you're not shooting, when you're not hitting perimeter shots at a
Mhm.
very, very good clip, you're gonna go home eventually. And they just ran into a team like Boston. Not only they're the team to beat in the Eastern Conference, but like Boston's been on a roll, man. Even without Kristaps Porzingis, in my opinion, I think they're going to cruise to the finals.
Yeah, I feel like Boston right now is in a prime position. They're going to be playing a Cleveland team who shot 28% from three last round.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they have enough to beat Boston, even without Kristaps Porzingis. I still think Boston should be the favorite to make it out of the
I
East.
agree. Yeah.
Um, to get to the next series that was still well, it was getting finished up was the Pacers Bucks series. So that was after Game 5 we had talked, and I think with Game 6, you just kind of felt like the Bucks just didn't have enough the whole time.
Yeah.
And obviously, we've been seeing some interesting reactions from players these
Yep.
playoffs. Pat Bev throwing
Mm-hmm.
a ball at a fan out of frustration and then
Yeah.
not even answering the question when he was asked about it by a reporter after the game.
Yep.
To
Because
me,
because she didn't follow his
mm,
podcast. I mean, you got to be kidding me.
dude is trying to act like he's like a top 10 player in the league and like he can't talk to her because she doesn't listen to him. So look, Pat Bev's
Yeah, that's
funny, but
crazy.
that's crazy. That's
That
crazy.
cro- that that completely crossed the line. Now, who knows what that fan did, but at the same time, Pat Bev, I just want to say, you're the professional. You're the one that you want people to look up to you. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Especially coming from Chicago. You know what I mean? Like him, like Derrick Rose, Jabari Parker was
yeah.
another one too. But like, dude, if you want people to like look up to you and like watch your podcast and like follow your career and stuff, you just got to think before you do some things, man.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
100%.
I get it, man. Fans have a history, especially in certain cities. We know, but like,
Mm.
yeah, that fan was probably talking crazy for sure. He's not going to just throw a ball at a fan for no reason, hit a girl in the head,
No, no,
apparently. You know
100%.
what I'm saying? But like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like that fan, like no one cares about like at the end of the day, like after this incident, no one's gonna remember that fan. They're all gonna remember you throwing the ball at the fan.
Yeah,
That's the topic.
I think the thing is too, and I don't want people to think that like, oh, it's okay for what fans say. At the end of the day, a fan should not be allowed to just say some crazy shit. And if
100%.
they are saying something crazy, you go to
Hmm.
security. You're the NBA
Yeah.
player. You go to
Hmm.
security. You tell, hey, this person, they're saying stuff that they shouldn't be saying.
Hmm.
Please eject them from this game. They have the
Facts.
power to do that.
Hmm.
And we've seen it before with players. Players have pointed out to a fan that was talking crazy, and they're human beings just like us. You
Yeah.
know, I think we as fans forget that even though these guys are getting paid millions, they still have feelings and emotions just like the rest of us. I'm sure that nobody
100%.
would appreciate if you were being called obscene things while you were at work. I mean, it would suck,
Yeah.
and you'd get pissed off too. So
Yeah. 100%.
I get
Yep.
that. But to
Hmm.
talk a little bit about the game itself, the Pacers had a pretty, I would say, like, overall, the team had a very balanced attack. They just played at their tempo. I think
Yeah.
the Pacers love to run and gun with the ball. You had six guys in double digits in this. Obi Toppin had a great game, 21
Yes, he
points.
did. Yep.
DJ McConnell was great off the bench.
He's
Uh,
been really solid for Indiana.
And Hallie had a double double in this game. I know he hasn't been shooting well from the field. He was 2 of 10 from
Hmm.
three, and
Yeah.
Hallie's my guy, but I do have to call him out for this. His shooting woes really concern me, especially because right now they're down one in the fourth quarter of this Knicks Pacers series for the
Yeah.
second round.
Hmm.
I feel like you were just telling me before we started recording that this was one of his first really good games where he went
Yep.
off in the first half. And I feel
Hmm.
like in this Bucks series, the only game that happened was game three. I haven't felt
Yeah.
like Callie really was a difference maker in terms of his scoring. I think he did in
Hmm.
other ways with his passing because he's a great passer. And I think we both
Yeah.
agree he's one of the best passers in the league right now. He just
Hmm.
able to create for others. And he's so quick about it too.
100%. Yeah.
Um, I gotta ask you, Nick, do you feel like the Bucks just either A, didn't have enough, B, they're just too old, or C, they just really needed Giannis for this game six and they could have forced game seven?
My opinion, if Giannis is healthy the entire series, I think Bucks win in six.
Okay.
I just think with Dame and Giannis together healthy,
Mhm.
they at least win a round.
I would hope they would, because
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, especially the way Chris Middleton played.
yeah,
If he was playing like that as a third wheel, I mean, you still have Bobby Portis, Brooke Lopez. They do like their starting core is very, very solid. It's their bench is highly questionable, and I think going into this offseason, you're going to have to figure out a couple of things. A, Damian Lillard, do you want to stay in Milwaukee or not? Right. B, what could they possibly do to improve this bench? Right.
yeah,
Because I think they do
yeah,
got to get younger.
oh yeah.
They do got to get younger. I think they're, especially the way this year has been,
Mhm.
Minnesota, Oklahoma, they got young stars. The Knicks, Jalen Brunson's a young star. You know what I mean? You're starting to see these young stars, Tatum, these guys are in their 20s in the prime of their careers. Like Dame and Giannis, they're starting to get up there in age now, but like I mean, they're still stars. There's no question about it. Giannis is a superstar. But yeah, I just think they definitely got to get younger. I agree with you there for
No,
sure. They need more defense. They need younger 3-and-D wings, like how Minnesota has it. It's Anthony Edwards. Look at all those wing defenders they have on that team.
Nikhil Alexander
Jaden
Walker.
McDaniels, yeah, Nikhil Alexander Walker, like they got some dogs on the defensive side of the ball. They need to find
Mm.
some dogs. And Patrick Beverly, in my opinion, I just think he needs to call it quits and retire. They thought he would be that guy, and I don't think he made that much of an impact, even on that side of the ball. Yeah, the Bucks were still getting cooked on the defensive side of the floor.
I think because when the day, and we talked about this when the Dame trade went down, we knew that they
Mm-hmm.
were going to be losing a lot of the defensive side of the ball, and we knew how well Drew Holiday was. I don't care regardless of what Jimmy Butler did. I love Jimmy. I'm literally wearing his shirt right now.
Yeah,
He just had a phenomenal first round series against the Bucks. He just really lives for the playoffs. I can't explain it. And he was cooking, but Drew Holiday was the heart and soul of your defense in Milwaukee. He's a great on ball defender. Should have won Defensive
mm-hmm.
Player of the Year 2 years ago over Marcus Smart, in my opinion.
Yes, yeah,
When your bench is giving you 11 points in a closeout game, you're not going to win a lot of games.
no,
I think Chris Middleton played really well in this series. He's older. I think you pointed it out when Dame looks at this team and they're kind of stuck because Giannis is on a super max. Dame Lillard's contract is huge. They signed Chris Middleton to a pretty hefty sized contract. Bobby
yeah,
Portis is one of your only guys that I would say is like a role player that
mm-hmm.
really gives you production because the fact
Yeah,
is Bobby Portis would have been the sixth man coming off the bench in this series if
mm-hmm.
Giannis wasn't hurt. So
Yep,
you had two guys from your bench that were playing as starters in this series, and Pat Bev and Bobby Portis. Malik Beasley got pushed over to the bench because he's not a defensive player. And, you know, at some point, the Magic's going to run out with Malik Beasley. He's just not that kind of player. If he
yeah.
was, the Lakers wouldn't have let him go. So,
That's why he's been bouncing around a lot lately.
yep. Oh, yeah. He's been bouncing
Yeah,
around a bunch of teams. I think people see him get hot from three from two, 3 games and
yeah,
think,
mm-hmm.
wow, this guy is one of the greatest 3-point shooters in the league. And then it's like reality hits and he's really streaky. But that's a lot of
Yeah,
guys. Not
yeah,
not everybody's
100%.
going to be a Steph Curry or Klay Thompson. I wish, but it just doesn't always happen. Um,
Yeah,
I think this is going to be, and I know we talked about this over the weekend, but I said it's going to be really interesting to see some of these teams in the offseason. I think the Bucks will be interesting to see. And then I think another one too, Nick, that we're going to really have to keep our eye on is the Sixers because the end of that Knicks Sixers series, that was close, but
yeah,
I feel like the Sixers they blew it again with their chances. I feel like they get all these chances, and it always seems like Joel Embiid and Joel Embiid just does not come up. And I mean, I'm not saying he took the last shot. Buddy Hield took a terrible fadeaway three. I don't know what the hell he thought he was doing, but that was
yeah,
that was way too early in the shot clock.
yeah,
You still had like I think 5 seconds left. You did not have to shoot that. That
yeah. I think
that
it was
was a
like
bad shot.
3.7. I think it was something like that. I think it kind of screwed them up because they what happened was when Maxi hit that three to send it to overtime, and B was on the floor, sent Maxi a screen, and Joel B's a great screener, and B fouled out. So B wasn't in the game at that point, and they could have drawn some up for Maxi, but they used Maxi as a decoy. And I'm not saying the play was bad. I just think Buddy Hield should have been more aware of the clock because he's a great 3-point shooter. They needed a three. He needed to realize that he could have took a couple of dribbles to create a separation or something like that, or maybe take a couple of dribbles, pump fake, might get the guy up in the air, and it might get a
Mhm.
clean look.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just chucked it up. I don't think the play design was bad. I would just say Buddy Hield kind of pulled the J.R. Smith that didn't know the situation.
I feel like it was just like
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's crazy too that you only had 7 guys on the Knicks
yeah,
playing in
yeah,
game 6. I am a little concerned when you're playing like Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart almost the full game.
yeah.
And I'm just thinking of the Bulls and all the injuries under the Tibbs
Mm-hmm.
era. You do have
Yeah.
to start thinking,
Jalen Brunson got hurt tonight, but he's back on the floor now. He left the game to go to the locker room in the middle of the game tonight. He had a foot injury.
and
Um,
that's a big thing.
yeah, that's huge. Especially he's been the best player in the play. Or I think you could argue him or Anthony Edwards has been the two best players in the postseason so far.
Hmm. Oh yeah, yeah. Jalen
Yeah,
Brunson has been amazing for New York. Um,
yeah.
People are talking about how he's already one of the best Knicks players to ever play for the organization, and I think
Oh,
that
100%.
that
Yeah,
speaks volumes because the
yeah.
Knicks in the last, I would say 30 years outside of the Ewing era.
Hmm.
They had those couple years with Melo and Stoudemire, faded away, haven't really been much since. And then
Yeah.
I feel like when they got Julius Randle, they make the playoffs, oh, the Knicks are back, right? But they didn't have Jalen Brunson yet. When they got Jalen Brunson, everything has changed for this team. Jalen Brunson went
Yeah.
from a rising star to like, hey, I'm an all NBA player. I can put up 35 a game. I can carry this team on my back.
Oh,
And
he's a star for sure.
he's a great. I mean, we talked about it
Yeah.
before the beginning of the season. He's an all NBA player. He
Hmm.
was going to make it. He was going to make an all-star team this year. There was no way he wasn't. And
Yeah.
Nick, before we get to the last, I think that's the last series that we're
Yeah,
going
that's
to
the
talk
last one.
about.
Yeah.
Bro, Tobias Harris was paid $180 million for 5 years. And in those 5 years, tell me how many times the Sixers made the finals.
Conference finals.
You chose Tobias over me? That's crazy. That's
Wow.
literally Jimmy Butler said it. It's crazy, but that did happen.
Not only Tobias, they chose Ben Simmons too. He's part of that. They could have
Yeah,
kept Jimmy, got rid
yeah.
of. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah.
Another disappointing season for the Sixers. I'm really
Yep.
curious to see what happens in the offseason for them.
Yeah.
I do think there's going to be major changes that are going to happen this year.
Yeah.
I do think that there is going to be a big free agent that does come to Philly. That's going to be my hot take right now. I don't know who it's going to be. It could be Paul George. Maybe it could be Jimmy Butler again. We don't know. But I think somebody's going to come to Philly. I don't think that they're going to trade Embiid this summer, but I think in order to keep Embiid happy, Tobias Harris is gone. They're not re-signing him.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
I don't think you're ever going to win a championship with Joel Embiid as your best player.
No. You
My
won't.
personal opinion. Yeah. I'm not saying he's not talent. I'm not saying he isn't talented enough.
Yeah.
But he's the Kawhi Leonard of Eastern Conference. What I mean is the man's
Okay.
always hurt in the playoffs. Now, give him credit. He does play while being injured. I'll give him that.
Mm-hmm.
Kawhi Leonard's only played 4 of the last 19 postseason games for the Clippers. No, I mean, Embiid's still on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand how every single season there's something wrong with you in the playoffs, health-wise. Every single playoff run. Literally,
I hear you.
I don't think he's had one playoff go where he was a full go 100%. Never on the injury report.
Yeah, I can't
I can't
think of one.
recall unless it was those first years with Ben Simmons and stuff, but I can't recall, to be honest with you. And I love Tyrese Maxey. I think they need to get the right third in there. Could be Paul George. Who knows? Maybe he might want to come to Philly.
I think it could happen. I don't think Paul
Yeah.
George. I feel like Paul George is never. If he wants to win a championship, he knows it's not going to be in LA. I think he's going to realize that now.
Yeah.
Can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get to the last one because actually that actually does segue over to LA. Clippers Mavs.
Yeah.
When we recorded last episode, we were after game 4. So
Mm-hmm.
game 5 was on Friday. Game 6 was on Sunday.
Yep.
And I just feel like the Mavs figured out a great lineup to use. Maxi Kleber as your 5, being a stretch 5. Then he got hurt. But it was a little too late for the Clippers to rally back in this series. And what happened? James Harden turned back into who James Harden is.
Just like you said. He was terrible.
You can't
Those
trust
last 2
him.
games horrible.
You just cannot trust him in the playoffs. He has proven year over year to always, for some reason, in the biggest moments, be the worst player. I think the best.
Can I be? Yeah.
Go ahead.
No,
No,
my
go
bad.
ahead. No. Go ahead.
Funny how their best 4 players, you can never rely on any of them in the playoffs. Think about that. Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
Not saying when he's on the floor, he does ball.
No, I agree.
He does, but he's just not on the floor, right? Paul George has been super, super inconsistent in his career in the postseason, right? That's your second best player. The third player is James Harden. You never know which James Harden you'll go get. He might look good for a couple games, but the most important ones never delivers. I think you could say the same with Russell Westbrook too. Russell Westbrook was horrible
Oh
in
yeah.
this series. I don't think he even averaged 6 points a game. I think he had more technical fouls one game than points. He had a donut one game, I believe, and he had a technical foul. But yeah, when you have all those guys together, I'm not saying they ain't talented. It's just that team just is not going to be a team that could go far in the postseason. It's just not, to be honest. And Steve Ballmer should blow it up, but he's not going to because they're moving into a new arena, and he's not going to move into a new arena with a full rebuild. Just not going to
Yeah,
happen.
yeah. So that is one thing. They are gonna have to re-sign somebody because
Yeah.
you have this brand new Intuit Dome arena that you built with
Mm-hmm.
this wall where there's gonna be like this like huge section where fans are
Mm-hmm.
gonna like psych out the opponent when they're shooting free throws. It's supposed to be a whole big thing, and
Yeah.
there's no way that Steve Ballmer is gonna walk in there with no Kawhi, no Paul George, no James Harden starting for next year. There's no way.
Yeah.
I think two of them will be back. I think that James
Yeah.
Harden is one of the more likely ones to be back. And the
Yeah.
reason
I
why
agree.
is because where is he going to go? Who wants to touch James Harden after all the shit he's been doing? He called Daryl Morey a
Yeah.
liar. He wore a fat suit to get out of Houston. He
Yeah.
complained about his hamstring with the Nets. And then all of a sudden he
Yeah.
was fine with the Sixers. What else do we have to see? I mean, what's he gonna do now? Is he gonna? I mean, what is he gonna say? Steve Ballmer tried to put like an AI chip into me. I mean, I feel like it's like the excuses are gonna get more ridiculous as time goes on,
Yeah.
and it's crazy that Mavs, that Mavs TV personality that was talking about how James Harden like was a quitter and stuff. Somebody like put that clip back after they got eliminated and was like, that guy was right this whole time.
Yeah.
And
This
it's
whole
true.
damn time.
It's true. He
Mm-hmm.
had 7 points in game five. And something that we talked about too was how the Mavs needed more from their bench. And I think they did get it in game 5 and 6. And like I said, Maxi Kleba, I think, was huge for them in those games. And Luca, he I mean, he's one of the best players in the league. We just got to give him credit for it.
Yeah. No, 100%. Um, yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's just embarrassing when it's a 2-2 series. You have a home game, you lose by 30. You lose
Yeah,
by Clippers lose by 30. Paul
yeah,
George, Harden, Russell Westbrook.
yeah.
I think they
123,
combined
93.
for
It was
yeah, I think they
crazy.
combined for I forgot it was a crazy stat. I think they barely scored for 20 points combined or something like that. It was kind of wild, but
So
um
it was like 20, like
6 maybe
26,
something.
27 points.
Yeah. Look at how much those guys got. I mean, not Russell Westbrook, for example, but Paul George, man. Look at how much the Clippers gave up just to bring you in because Kawhi said that the only way he was coming there is that they got you. And SGA was in that trade with Danilo Gallinari, 6 first round picks. Like a lot of them were swaps, but a lot of them were straight up first round picks as well.
Mhm.
Man, imagine how the Clippers would be right now if they just would have if Kawhi by hey, I ain't trading SGA. This brother gonna be something. But
Oh yeah,
at that point in time, Kawhi was at the point in his career he just won a championship in Toronto, and he was going to get everything he wanted.
yeah.
You know what I
And
mean?
I think when they traded for Kawhi, not traded. I'm sorry. When they signed Kawhi, they were expecting the guy from Toronto that led that team to a championship. Let's take out the injuries with the Warriors. Kawhi had a great run. He had that seven bounce shot in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
He led that
Yeah,
2-0 comeback from the Bucks. He was the best player that year in the
mm-hmm.
playoffs. That's the guy they
100%.
thought they were going to get. And I
Yeah,
know that the fake NBA Central did that they made a fake post about SGA putting that on his IG story, which was really funny.
yeah,
But it's true. I mean, they gave away SGA, Daniil Gallinari, and 6 first-round picks,
something like
and
that. Yeah,
it's gotten you one Western Conference Finals appearance. That's it.
you choked the 3-1 lead in that one in the bubble.
Shout
Yeah,
out Doc Rivers.
yeah.
Shout out Doc Rivers. Nick, before
Oh
we
no, that wasn't a bubble. My bad. That was the semifinals against the Nuggets. They lost when
Oh
they
yeah,
made the
yeah,
conference
yeah, 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 yeah,
finals
yeah, yeah. They
when
lost to the Suns.
Kawhi they lost to the Suns. That's when Phoenix made the finals and lost after having
Yeah,
a 2-0 lead in the finals against Milwaukee. But yeah,
yeah. Because if
my
you
bad. I had
remember,
to correct
no,
myself there. I
no,
was
no, no,
tripping for a
no, 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 no,
second.
no. You're good. No, I was gonna say because that was when Pat Bev shoved Chris Paul, and that was like a
Yeah.
whole
Hmm.
thing. Um,
Yeah.
Before we get to the second half of the episode, uh, real quick that I just wanted to say is that the 2010s, man, they're over. All the guys that we grew up watching, it's kind of sad to see most of them not in the playoffs. I mean, I think outside of Kyrie, everybody else is part of this new generation, man. So it's scary to see this.
Yeah. You know what's crazy how they used to say all the time, it's a grown man's game? No, it's a
Yeah.
young man's game now.
Oh yeah. No, it's not a grown man's game.
It's
It's
a
like
young man's
Ant
game now.
Edwards, 22 years old. He is showing everybody why he is who he is. Welcome back to the second half of the episode, guys. Right before we got cut off here, we were talking about how Ant Edwards has arrived. Young man's game, like Nick said. And we're really seeing this in the second round. I mean, when you look at the matchups that we're seeing, the Pacers versus the Knicks, Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Halliburton versus Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, the Villanova boys. You got with the Wolves and Nuggets. I know Jokic has been around for a while, but like Jokic has really become the guy he is in the last 4 to 5 years. So you got
Hmm.
Jokic versus Ant. And then you have obviously with Boston and Cleveland, I feel like those teams, like they've been there, like not
Hmm.
in terms of just the players, like the players
Yeah.
themselves. Like Donovan Mitchell's been around for a while. Same thing
Hmm.
with like Tatum and Brown. But it's not you're not seeing LeBron or Curry or KD.
Hmm.
None of those guys are in the second round of the playoffs. And I just think it's just wild to say that in
Yeah.
this aspect, just because we've been so used to for years seeing these guys make deep playoff runs. So, how are you
Yeah.
feeling about the second round? And do you feel like we're going to see a new champion crowned? Because the Denver Nuggets are now 2-0.
Yeah. If they don't win game three, that series is over. You ain't beating Minnesota four in a row. Yeah,
No.
that's just not gonna happen. But besides that series, I'm not surprised. I mean, I took Dallas personally to beat Oklahoma. But I'm not surprised Oklahoma won game one. I think Dallas will be better. But watch out for Luka's injury. He did get hurt in the game. He's been dealing with an injury, and then he tripped over Lou Dort after contesting his shot. And notice how the rest of the game, he did not want to drive the basketball. He didn't play his normal game. He settled for a lot of perimeter shots. And when you um, played him right in Oklahoma's hands, say, okay, take those jumpers. We'll contest. Well, we're going to live with it. You know,
That's true.
I just think Dallas, they need to get Kyrie Irving going earlier in games. Like, look what happened when they played the Clippers. I think game three, he had, I think maybe like 6 points in one half, and ended the game with like 40, and they lost the game. And in game, I think six it was, he had 2 points going into halftime. Ends the game with 30 something. I think you got to get him going, man. Like, I know Luka's such a ball dominant player, but eventually Kyrie Irving's not going to be happy being in Dallas. It's going to kind of remind him how it was in Cleveland when LeBron was the one being the ball handler and stuff and orchestrating everything. Like, you gotta somehow mix it up, man. Because if you're gonna just let Luka just keep playing this isolation basketball, I think that's what Oklahoma wants Dallas to do.
Mhm.
I think they play right in their hands in game one. They play that style, Dallas, when they
Mhm.
don't move the ball and Luka's trying to post up Luke Door or trying to isolate all this kind of stuff, and then Kyrie Irving gets a couple opportunities to isolate and stuff. I'm telling you right now, man, Oklahoma is gonna gentleman sweep them. It's not gonna go well for Dallas. They need to change their playing style. They need to get back to playing team ball. They need to keep mixing it up. Who brings up the ball and stuff like that? They need to get PJ Washington going. They need to get their shooters going. Tim Hardaway's back now. You got to get him going now. You got to get him touches. And Oklahoma defensively, game one was sensational, man. They're rotating everything. They made every shot contested, tough. They're winning these 50-50 balls. And you see the youth in Oklahoma, man. They're very, very energetic. I talked about it like it's a young man's game. Look how young Oklahoma is. Look at that team, man.
Oh
They ain't going
yeah.
anywhere for a while.
everybody on that team is damn near younger than 27
Yeah,
or younger, except for
yeah,
Gordon Hayward. I mean,
hmm,
he's the oldest guy on the team. And then they
yep,
have, I mean, when you look at this team, when I list like some of these guys, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Josh Giddey, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Isaiah Joe, Cason Wallace,
yep,
uh, you look at these guys and they're all really young players still that are developing and becoming
yep,
um their final form. And I know, Nick, that the MVP was announced today, and this is something we were going to talk about. But I definitely
yep,
think the SGA got snubbed, man. And I know he's your guy, and I know that you're going to ride with him no matter what. But I don't think Jokic this year deserved the MVP. I think last year you have more of an argument to say he deserved the MVP. And
yeah,
ironically, if they lose, I think you just have to stop giving Jokic the MVP because it seems every year you give it to him, he gets cooked in the first or second round. So
yeah. I think this was his worst statistical MVP season too. I believe. I feel like that's why a lot of people were like, eh. And Denver at one point in the middle of the season, they were playing like 500-ish ball. And I just feel like Oklahoma though, like from start to finish, man, they were very, very consistent. And SGA averaged over 30 as the number one seed in the Western Conference. And here's the thing too, man. It's like all the hype was going to Denver going into this year. Everyone looked at OKC just as a playing team. They ended up being the number one overall seed in the Western Conference.
I don't think
Like
anybody saw that.
that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
everyone saw like Denver being a top three seed and Jokic was gonna have this
Mhm.
year. I mean, he had a great season, don't get me wrong, but I just think SGA's impact on Oklahoma was much bigger than Jokic's impact on Denver. I personally feel like if let's say hypothetically speaking, if Jokic had a season-ending injury before a year started, and SGA did too. I still think Denver would have a better record than Oklahoma. My
I think
personal
I
opinion. I still think Denver would be a better team. Like they still have a better regular season record than Oklahoma would
I
if SGA
think
was out
I
for the year too.
okay, I think it's possible. I also think that Jalen Williams right now, the way he has become and blossomed into this young star,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's hard for me to think that they couldn't. But I get what you're
Yeah,
saying. Like if I
yeah,
started this year, like Jalen Williams was great last year too. But
yeah.
if we didn't know he was going to take this step up, and they both had a season-ending injury to begin the year,
Mm-hmm.
I could see Denver possibly having a better record. But I
Yeah.
will say that OKC would be okay. I think they still could make the playoffs possibly because
Mm-hmm.
of a guy like Jalen Williams and then Chet Holmgren. But I think SGA is what puts you over the top. I think
Yeah.
he is the most valuable player. Like this team is not going to beat the Mavs without SGA. I'm just gonna say that you
Yeah.
don't have that kind of firepower. Like you have good young guys, but you're
Mm-hmm.
not beating a team that has Luka and Kyrie four times without SGA.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree, man. And it is what it is. Like I said, I think we're happy for Jokic. I mean,
Oh yeah,
congrats to him. This is his
no.
third MVP. I matches the Larry Bird. Larry Bird's got three MVPs as well now. He's
Mhm.
putting himself in a very good category. But I just thought, man, it was going to be at least one of these guards, and I just thought I thought SGA would edge over Luca. Which in the voting, SGA did come in second,
Mhm.
and then Luca came in third. If you look at the MVP voting standings, but man, I'm excited to dive deep into this Minnesota Denver series because no one saw this coming. Minnesota
Mhm.
completely dominated them
No.
in both games. Second game, obviously Rudy Gobert. Congratulations to him on becoming a father. Wasn't able to play, but I've never seen defense like that in our lifetime. Maybe the Pistons team that won the championship when they beat the Lakers, maybe. But I'm talking about in our lifetime. I think that was the best defensive half performance I've seen since the 95-96 Bulls. That's the best defense I've ever seen. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
like, no Rudy Gobert. He won the Defensive Player of the Year.
mhm.
Now he has four of them, right? Which that is insane in itself. You held the Denver team that's fully loaded to 35 points. Jamal Murray couldn't get off. Aaron Gordon couldn't get off. KCP couldn't get off. They're playing Jokic one-on-one. Guess what? Jokic is turning over the ball like crazy. He's not used to being able to get this one-on-one defense. Normally teams just double him all the time. Now they're reaching a little bit. Jokic is being indecisive with the ball. Like, they got this entire team frustrated. They got to the point where Mike Malone was trying to get ejected because he didn't even know what to do anymore with the team. He got into the ref's face. And he goes, you know what? No. I'm not going to eject you. You're going to watch your team get your ass beat. Get back on the sideline. And Murray's throwing heating pads on the court. $100,000 fine, that's all you give the guy? Are you kidding me? That's all you give the guy? When a guy makes $33 million this year, going to make $36 million next year. And I get it's the playoffs. I get it's for the TV revenue. They need Denver at full strength because they know if they don't have Murray, they're going to lose in 4. They're going to get swept if he doesn't play game 3 because they ain't winning the game without him. I mean, if you're losing by 20, 30, you're being down 35 points with your team at full strength without Murray. Reggie Jackson ain't going to do anything, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I want to hear your thoughts on the whole Jamal Murray thing and how you viewing this series so far.
All right. Let's do it. Okay. So, like you said, NBA is a business. You know, Adam Silver knows if he suspends Jamal Murray, this game is ending in Minnesota in game 4. And he knew that right away. So we knew we weren't going to see the suspension because people are going to do this what if. Oh, what if?
It still might.
You know, it could, but there's no excuse now. I mean, people are still going to use the excuse. Jamal Murray's hobbled, KCP's hobbled. People will use that excuse. I think the biggest problem with basketball is that we always use the excuse, oh, well, he was injured, or well, he was hurt. Well, it's like, well, if we live in this what if world, okay, we can always make any situation possible then if we're going to live in the what ifs. What if LeBron in 2015 and they called the timeout, or they called the technical on David Blatt for calling a timeout? The Bulls would have went up 3-1. We don't see LeBron in that finals. We don't talk about it. His whole trajectory of the second half of his career could be talked way differently because of that. But that didn't happen. Draymond Green being suspended in game 5 of the 2016 finals. We get it. You know, but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So if I sit here and say, oh, well, Jamal Murray should have been suspended. I know he didn't, and he should have been, and we can always talk about that. I think he should have been suspended. I'm going to say this. You cannot criticize others about crying and bitching and moaning and stuff and then do the same exact thing when you're losing. Like, I know that they clowned the Lakers last year for a lot of things, but it's like you're acting the same way now. Like, you're doing the same exact things that they were doing. Like, the Lakers do bitch and cry about a lot of calls. But they're doing the same exact thing now because they're losing. They got used to winning a lot, and I don't think they know how to. They just don't know how to beat a team that's not named the LA Lakers for some reason now. And Minnesota, like I think we've talked about last episode, is they match up very well against the Nuggets.
You were saying this the entire year. The one team that could beat Denver is Minnesota.
And Minnesota, I honestly thought that Denver, because of their experience, and I know like that doesn't sound like, oh, well, just because you have experience doesn't mean that you're going to win. It's like, well, in the case of you won a championship, I mean, last round you were down every game, you came back, you won those games because you know how to play the long game and not the short game, right? You would think that their experience could have at least won them one of the games. I think game 1 would have been the game they could have won. Obviously, that didn't happen at the end. And that was the closest that Denver's been in that series was game 1. I mean, game 2, like you said, 35 points at half, 29 of 83 from the floor the whole game. I mean, when you're holding an opponent like that who has arguably the best player in the world to terrible shooting numbers. I mean, Jokic had the worst game of the playoffs in the last
in a long time.
And you don't see him missing a lot of shots. I think that Minnesota has actually unlocked something that they didn't even realize they could do, is use Naz Reid and keep Rudy Gobert on the bench. And that might be the reason why they win this series quicker, is because now they figured out we don't even need Rudy Gobert on the floor. If we play Naz Reid, we can play even faster. And we still have enough size to guard Jokic.
Yeah.
So One more thing, Nick, before I give it back to you.
Hmm.
And this is something that I said to begin. Well, not to begin. This is something I said the last episode. I said that Karl Anthony Towns has to play at a star level, which means you cannot score just 12 points in the game. You need to be scoring, I think I said something like 24 between somewhere between 24 to 27 points. You need to be shooting 45% from the field.
Yeah.
He did that in game two. He had 27 and he
Yep.
shot 66% from the field. If
Hmm.
I go to game one of this series, he had a good game. And this is what I've been talking about with Cat is that I cannot. Okay, he had 20 in game one, right? But he shot 61% from the field.
Hmm.
I need to see that Cat. That Cat with Anthony Edwards as your best player, that's a very hard team to beat because we haven't seen this version of Cat. We've seen a I'm not really in it Cat. Cat's playing
Hmm.
defense. When have we ever known Cat to be a defender? I'll let you
Never.
go.
No, never. That's why Jimmy Butler wanted to leave Minnesota so bad because there was with Cat Wiggins like he didn't want to deal with the whole shit that was going on in Minnesota. But
Mhm.
this Minnesota team is going to be very very tough to beat. I don't know how Denver gets back in this series. All I know is they just have to take it one game at a time. They have to win this game. They have to win game three. You go down 3-0, it's over. You are not beating this team is too good to beat 4 times in a row, 4 games in a row. And also it's been helping Minnesota that the refs are letting them play very, very physical in this series. And the refs keep continuing to call games like this. Minnesota's going to the finals. They're going to the finals. If they let them be this physical with them. I mean,
Yeah, I can see that.
I guess I haven't seen like that first half of game two.
Mhm.
I never seen defense like that in my life. Like honestly, like
I think
I've never seen it.
I don't think we've seen a team be this physically imposing in a long
Hmm.
time. I think, like you said,
Yeah.
the Pistons. We've seen some teams that really play press in the playoffs. I think
Hmm.
more in I think series where you're playing against one really great player and you're just gonna hound him the whole time. I think the last
Yeah.
time we really saw that was the 2019 finals against
Yeah.
Steph Curry because they were
Hmm.
playing a box and one because they knew nobody else outside of Steph Curry could beat them in that series. So they just started pressing up on him so hard. And that was the last time I've really seen defense play like that in the playoff series. But I feel like Minnesota, like it's crazy to think about this because last year, if you look at the roster compared to this year, I think some of the additions that they put onto this team, and then obviously having guys that you didn't have last year. I think Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid being back this year are showing as a huge difference maker because you didn't even
Hmm.
have those two when you played against Denver last year, and you took one
That's
game over
true.
Denver.
Yep.
Like Denver, like people forget that the Wolves did win one game last year, and that was just because of Ant Edwards. Ant is a special player. He's already had a
Yeah.
schedule. I think people didn't expect him to be this good, but he is way ahead of where I think we all expected him to be.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. He can do it all. He's physically imposing. The guy is massive. He's strong. He can finish against anybody. His fadeaway, dude, is so nasty.
It is.
Every time he backed down either KCP or Christian Braun or Aaron
Hmm.
Gordon, didn't matter who the hell was guarding him.
Yeah.
18-foot turnaround jumper, money every single time. It's like you
He's
already
posting on like
know
a
it's
prime D
going.
Wade.
Yeah, prime D Wade. I mean, we call him Jordan's son, right? He did say he
He's
does not want to
different.
be compared to Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
He did
he's
say that,
different.
but he is different.
I just love how they're so humble about it in the post game, even after beating the crap out of them game two. They're like, no, 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 no. These are the defending champs. Like they know that everybody's like making fun of Denver and they're not going for the trap. They're not going for the social media shit. Like they're locked in. They are so locked in right now.
Yeah.
They're playing as if they're down 2-0 or they're the ones getting their asses kicked. They take every game seriously, and man, Minnesota, man, I don't know what else to say about them. I don't.
They're not
I,
front runners. I
yeah,
think that's what it is. There's a lot
yeah,
of teams that front run, and I
hmm
feel like Ant knows that the job is not done yet. So he
yeah,
can, I mean, he's gonna talk shit.
yeah,
He does not care.
yeah. I got to bring this up to you too. If you want to talk about the next series, which is the Knicks Pacers.
Oh yeah.
What did you think about that call on that illegal screen on Miles Turner they called with 12 seconds left in that game when the game was tied?
Dude, I've been wanting to talk about this. I was telling a buddy earlier. I honestly think that was not an illegal screen. Now, I feel like the rule is very subjective, and I think it's based
hmm
on the situation too.
Yeah,
But when you're in a tie game, or not a tie game, but when you're in a close game where, hey, this basket might make the difference between them
yeah,
winning or losing, you cannot
hmm
make that call, dude.
you
Come on.
can't.
You saw like I think somebody who mentioned this. I think it was on TNT. They were talking about it after the game. Shaq made the joke saying, if this is the 90s, Charles Oakley would have been like yelling at them for how soft of a screen that was.
Yeah,
I mean, that's insane.
yeah,
Like Miles Turner, I get the little bit of movement, but it wasn't
yeah.
like I still
Obvious.
Dante
Yeah,
DiVincenzo
sold it.
he
He should have
sold
got
it.
fined for the flop. Don't they still fine players for flops? Because that was one of the biggest flops I've ever
He
seen.
flopped. He flopped on that play for sure. But
hmm
I honestly feel they don't call that. I think Tyrese Halliburton has a wide open three at the top of the key because that was a good screen,
Yeah,
and that could have
yeah,
Halliburton's moment to kind of
yeah.
turn everything around. And I feel
I
like that.
agree.
And then also the foul call on or the foul that went from on Jalen Brunson to it's not on Jalen Brunson. I don't know. It just kind of feels like the refs in game one were.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that one? Because I feel
So
like that was a little weird.
yeah, yeah. So the Miles Turner screen, I didn't like the call either. Was he moving a tad? Yes, but here's the thing, man. There's probably 40 of those same screens that don't get called, but you're gonna call that one. The biggest moment of the game, you're gonna call that one. That wasn't egregious. Not like his elbow was like
Yeah.
he was
Have we
moving a
seen
tad.
Draymond
He was
Green giving
moving
a
a
screen?
tad. That's what I'm saying. Like you can't call that at the end of the game. And there's another couple of calls I want to get into.
Okay.
They called the foul on Tyrese Halliburton on the Brunson strip, right? They reviewed it. They reversed the call. Then it ended up being Indiana's ball. But here's the thing: they might need to change this rule next year. That I forget, I can't pronounce number 23's name for Indiana, the one that had the
Oh,
nasty dunk,
Aaron Neesmith.
Neesmith.
Mhm.
Go watch that replay. That wasn't a kick ball. That ball was off his hands. That should have been a turnover on the Knicks. That was not. They called the kick ball. But here's the issue: you can't review kick ball plays. They might want to change that rule next year because that cost Indiana another possession to take the lead too. I'm just saying, like the way the refs have been, like, especially in that game, it's inexcusable. It's just inexcusable. You ruin a great game by that. Like, I'm not saying you have to stop the every single play in the 2 minutes, but like some of these calls is just like, dude, come on, man. Like, as fans, like you want to see a great ending, and it's very unfortunate to see refs take that away from the
I
viewers,
hear you.
especially the players, especially the team that's getting hosed. I felt like Indiana got hosed. And not only that, the game one, I think I hate to say it to you, Grim, but I think Halliburton was the reason why they lost that game. He only had 6 points. He turned over the ball a lot, especially he had two crucial turnovers with under four
Yeah.
minutes to go in the game. And it got to the point where he had one wide open look, didn't even shoot the ball, didn't take the shot. And I'm just like, whoa. I'll give him credit. Credit's due. He went off in game two. I don't know who won the game. I haven't been able to look,
So
but all I know is he had like 25 points in the first half or something. He was cooking. That's all I know.
I can give it to you right now. They lost 121-130 to the Knicks. Halliburton had 34 points tonight. He shot 63% from three. So he was 7-11 from three, and he shot
Mm-hmm.
57% from the field. And he also had 9 assists in this game. And I agree with you,
Like,
Nick.
great. Yeah.
I agree with you. Halliburton was a huge reason offensively why they didn't win game one.
Hmm.
And this has been the thing. I don't know if he's hurt. I get it. I'm gonna sound biased because I love me some
And that's your
Tyrese
guy, man.
Halliburton, bro.
That's your guy, man.
But I have to no, but I will call him out. I feel like he's been really inconsistent in the playoffs, but I think that this has been an issue with Halliburton the last 2 years. Is that he's very injury prone, and it seems like these nagging injuries that bother him throughout the second half of the season usually affect his play, especially on the offensive end, where we're
Yeah.
just kind of seeing him not being the same player that he was in the first half of the year. I mean, the first 10 weeks, he looked like a superstar, and he's been an average starter since the All-Star break. And you need Halliburton to be playing at the first 10 weeks level where he was cooking, saying, I'm tired of being a loser, like was talking shit, going Dame
Yeah.
time on them in the in-season tournament.
Yeah, that's facts.
He's gonna need to have another 34-point game in game three if they want any chance to be in this series, because I'm telling you right now, Nick, Jalen Brunson is not going anywhere, and he's going to continue to do what he did. I mean, today, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a rundown, but Dante DiVincenzo had a great game. He had 28 points today. You know,
He's been balling for them. He had that
yeah,
huge three at the end of game one. Huge three.
yeah, and
Two.
I gotta give shout out to Josh Hart, man. Well, I don't know what's going on. Bro is playing power forward, and he gets 15 rebounds. And I think, and I know we said this last episode, but the dude is only 6'4", 6'5", and the
Yeah.
fact he's grabbing more rebounds than big men out there, like that's crazy.
Yeah, especially Mitchell Robinson. Someone's got to step up because now he's out for the rest of the playoffs, obviously, too. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah. But no, man, the Knicks, they're playing very well. I feel like they're the only team in the East that could give Boston somewhat of a chance. You know what I mean? I think that
Hmm.
I don't think Indiana's going to do it. I don't think Cleveland's going to do it. The Knicks are the one team they could rough it up with Boston and make that very interesting series if that happens in the conference finals. That's the matchup we want to see for sure.
Do you think that the Knicks could upset Boston, or is that kind of a lot to ask for?
It could happen. I think the Knicks could win at least two games, at least make it a six-game series. I don't see it being a sweep or a gentleman's sweep. The way Brunson's been playing, if DiVincenzo Hart keep playing like this, and Anobi's a monster on defense, just a monster, man. And the next, when they really want to clamp down, like Hart and Anobi, they could guard Tatum and Jalen Brown. I'm not saying they're completely shut them down, but I think they could give them different looks. I think they're the one team in the East that's got size on the wings that they can switch a lot of pick and rolls.
You want to know the one thing I'm concerned about if they do find each other in the Eastern Conference Finals is I feel like the guards for the Celtics are going to have an easier time guarding the Knicks because
Mm-hmm.
you can throw either Drew Holiday, Derek
Oh,
White,
Drew's guarding Jalen, 100%.
or even like if you want to on certain possessions of Jalen Brown or Jason Tatum onto Jalen Brunson. You have
Mm-hmm.
all those guys that you can throw onto him. And I feel like outside of Jalen Brunson, and not to say like DiVincenzo had a great game, but I'm just thinking about a team that like the Pacers don't play defense.
They don't.
Here's the thing that the Knicks have not seen yet, a team that actually can play defense. Because as much as Nick Nurse is a great defensive coach,
Oh, they're not good
Kyle Lowry
defensively.
is not great defensively. I don't remember Kelly Oubre being a great defender. You were missing DeAnthony Melton, who is probably one of your best perimeter defenders. Tyrese Maxey is not terrible at defense, but he's not known for his defense. It's about his
Yeah.
offense. That Sixers team is not a defensive minded team. Neither is this Pacers
No.
team. This team is far from wanting to play defense. I mean,
They're a run it and gun it team, man.
yeah, that
Yeah.
they're trying to beat you. They're trying to outscore you the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be the interesting part because Jalen Brunson has had his way, but I want to see him against a team that's going to have multiple guards that can guard him. Who else is going to
Yeah.
step up? Because you're not going to get as easy of looks as you've gotten in these first two rounds if they are able to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. That's my one question outside of Jalen Brunson. Who is going to be your guy that's going to step up? Is it going to be DiVincenzo? I mean, he's been playing good, like you said. Is it going to be a Josh Hart game where he gives you 25? Is it going to be OG Anunoby going off. OG's played the Celtics multiple times. He's used to this.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to see what happens.
Yeah, if that happens, we'll definitely that'll be a very intriguing series for sure. And I think everybody wants to see the young guards. They want to see that OKC Minnesota matchup now. I think
Yes,
everyone wants to
sir.
see Anthony versus Shea.
Yes, sir. Um, Nick, real quick before we wrap up this episode today, do you want to give your predictions from our bracket for the second round? I know that for teams that, are out of the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs, you can give a different prediction if you had that team going to the next
Yeah,
round, who you would have now.
yeah.
I'll let you go first, since we talked about each series for the second round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I had Dallas being Oklahoma.
Okay.
I'm not going to change that pick yet. Just game one. I
Fair
just got
enough.
to see a different team from Dallas, the way they approach the game. I had Denver beating the Suns.
Mhm.
Um, it looks like Minnesota's going to win that series, but I picked Denver, so I'll still stick with, I guess, Denver just because I picked them,
Okay.
before the playoffs start. But if I had to change my pick, I would. I'd take Minnesota now, but I had Boston beating Cleveland, and then I had the Knicks beating the Bucks, but I think Knicks would still beat Indiana. Now they're up 2-0. So if they win one game on the road, they'll be in good shape to close out in five.
Okay. Okay. I like the picks. I also had Boston winning, Adam winning against the Magic. And
Mm-hmm.
then I had Indiana, not Indiana, sorry. I had the Knicks beating the Bucks in the second round. I do think they're gonna beat Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
I mean they're already down 2-0.
Yeah.
Unless they're gonna win both games at home. I think, like you said, if Knicks can take one game in Indiana, whether it's game 3 or game 4. They'll win
Yeah.
in 5 in Madison Square Garden. In the West, I had the Mavs as well beating OKC. Um, I feel like that's going to be the series where we're just not sure yet because
Mm-hmm.
of game 1 and how bad it looked at the end. And
Yeah.
then I had Denver beating the Suns as well. And the problem is that I have Denver going all the way. So I really can't be like, oh, let me change it now. So
Yeah. You gotta stick to your guns at that point. I mean, I
I,
had that. I had them going to the finals.
and that's the thing is I just didn't see this. So
Yeah.
I have to stay with Denver because this is what I picked. I
Mm-hmm.
will say this though. If Denver loses, either I think they have to win both. I mean, they can't lose. If they lose game 3 or 4, it's over. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how serious it is. I don't
Yeah.
think it's like, oh, they could come back 3-1. And I get that they did that in the bubble, but this isn't the bubble. Uh,
No.
I just don't see them coming back from a 3-1 deficit with
Especially you
against
still
Minnesota.
would have to go to Minnesota one of those games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't see it, Nick.
Yeah, me
But
either.
hey,
I don't either.
it's the NBA playoffs and we're
You
just
never know
just
what can happen. Yeah.
we never know what's gonna happen. We appreciate you guys again listening all the way to the end of the episode. If you have, please, reminder, just give us a like, comment, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends and family. We always appreciate having new listeners on. Nick, like we always say, if anybody wants to join us on the podcast, please feel free to IM us, reach out, let us know. And we definitely would love to schedule to get you guys on to the podcast. We're looking to have some people on very soon, Nick. Um,
Facts.
and we love to talk ball with anybody. So whether you're new to the game or you've been watching it for a long time, does not matter. Please feel always free that you can hop on. Nick, real quick, I just want to
Mm-hmm.
say, man, I'm just happy that it's the NBA playoffs and that we get to talk about this. And we are not the mainstream media that falls for NBA Centel. All right.
Oh
I
hell
just had to
no.
say it
Yeah.
real quick.
Yeah. Had to do it. Had to do it. I had to blame you, man. Completely agree with that. Why we started this podcast, we were tired of listening to the same narratives constantly every single day on TV. They feels like they never change the topic, they never change talk about the same team, players, and we
Mhm.
just want to give everybody their shine that deserves to get their shine. Think about it. Me and you, we started this podcast. We talked about the Pacers and Thunder. A year later, they're both in the conference semifinals. What does that tell you?
Hey, it just tells you, man, that sometimes like you just see things, and I'm not saying like we're some like experts here,
Hmm.
but we can see things because we watch the game of basketball, and it's just clear as day that these guys are special. I think that there are other guys that also talk about them. And, like you have to give shout outs to guys like JJ Redick. I think JJ Redick is one of the smartest guys in basketball right now. He was talking about both of these guys. There are people out there that notice
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. I think it's just that a lot of times the mainstream media, they just want to talk about the same three narratives, which is LeBron James, the Golden State Warriors, and Kevin Durant. I mean, it's like an unending cycle that we have to talk about it and their legacies. And it's like,
Hmm.
how much longer do we have to keep hearing about this? Because none of those guys are in the playoffs, and they're going to still talk about them. They're going to talk
Facts.
about LeBron's like, what's his next move until, I mean, well, they'll never stop talking
Yeah.
about that, but they're going to continue to talk about it. And it's like,
Hmm.
when does it end? We want to hear more about
The
the
teams are still in it.
yeah, yeah. I don't care what he
Facts.
does. If they draft Bronny, then go ahead, draft Bronny.
Go
But
ahead.
I don't give a shit. Tell me,
Good luck
tell
with
me what
that.
you tell me what you think about the Mavs and OKC, and tell me about what you think about the Nuggets Wolves series because I want to hear more about that.
I think every fan
Anyways,
wants to hear more about that. Yeah.
anyways, before anything else, like I said, thank you guys again for listening. Please, uh, do not forget to continue checking out for more content. Nick, any last words that you want to say before we hop off?
And just we appreciate everybody obviously that's been listening or watching these all ball no foul episodes, man. And we're looking forward to push more content out as the playoffs go along, and we can't wait to keep diving into these games, these rounds until the playoffs are over. So buckle up,
Sir.
guys. You're gonna hear a lot more content, man. Let's get it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, guys. Remember, subscribe, continue to check out for more content, and we will see you soon.